Right in?
I would jump in. Yeah, I would.
Okay.
I'd-
Thank you, everyone, for being here. Welcome. Thank you for joining us for our second EFTCNJ Q&A. My name is Simi. I'm so excited to see so many people here. We know more people will be joining us, so Aaron will be letting them in as we go. EFTCNJ is the Emotionally Focused Center of New Jersey, a volunteer-run organization whose mission is to promote healthy, loving relationships across New Jersey through the practice of emotionally focused therapy. We are dedicated to the building, growth, and excellence of the New Jersey community of EFT therapists. And today's Q&A is just one example of the ways that we do this. I really want to thank my fellow EFTCNJ board members, Yosef Gurevich, Aaron Hirschfeld, and Abby Liu for all of their work in making today's Q&A happen. We are honored to have so many people here from all across the world, and we know a large part of what draws you in today is our trainer, Debi Scimeca-Diaz. Debi is a licensed marriage and family therapist, as well as an ICEFT-approved EFT therapist, supervisor, and trainer. Debi is an AAMFT-approved supervisor in the state of New Jersey with over 25 years experience in the field, including over 15 years as a licensed clinical alcohol and drug counselor. She runs a full-time private practice where she offers EFT couples therapy and hold me tight workshops, provides individual and group supervision and consultation, and runs EFT trainings at both the externship and core skills levels. She is also our leader at EFTCNJ. But beyond her bio, which I stole off the internet, Debi is an incredibly talented EFT guru. When I want to be inspired in my practice of EFT, I just go over to her website and I watch one of her booster videos to remind myself of what EFT looks like in the purest form. So thank you so much for generously sharing your time and wisdom with us today, Debi.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will jump into the questions soon, but before I do, I just want to highlight a few things of interest. First off, we have Debi will be running an online Hold Me Tight in June, and I believe that one is on a Thursday, Friday.
Yep, Thursday, Friday.
For anyone who is Jewish Sabbath observant, that might be really helpful for them. Debi will be running an externship in July in person in New Jersey, as well as a core skills online in September. Aaron will be dropping the links to all of these in the chat box. As I mentioned, Debi has a lot of booster videos on her website. These are great trainings where she recorded them live on Zoom. She does didactics about a specific part of EFT, and then you watch pieces from some of her tapes to see it play out in real life. Another thing that we really want to highlight is EFTCNJ membership. If you are in New Jersey or offer therapy in New Jersey and want to be listed on our website and have your profile up there, then you can join EFTCNJ. And then one thing I want to highlight in particular is someone had asked a question about, when we asked for the questions for today, someone had sent in a question about a fair recovery. This is our second Q&A that we've done. The first one was about a fair recovery. So if you want to see that, that's actually on the EFTCNJ website, and Aaron can send you the link for that as well. So let's jump into the questions. Many of you wrote in with questions you have about back to the basics in EFT, so we'll be posing as many of them to Debi as we can over the next 50 minutes or so. If you have a question that you think of today as we're talking, you can put that in the chat box, and if we have time, Aaron will be monitoring the chat box and he can raise that at the end. So without further ado, I will jump into the questions.
Can I, before you do that, I just want to say one thing. I actually contemplated about showing you guys a 4 minute and 39-second tribute to Sue Johnson, but I'm not going to do that because I know time is very limited. I just want to say thank you to Sue Johnson for what she's done for our field and for me, and for all of you, because all of you guys are here because of her fight and her passion to get EFT out there in the world. And she really did have to fight. And it's a tremendous loss for our field that she's no longer with us. And she's got lots and lots of people who will continue her work, myself being one of them. So thank you, Sue, for everything.
Thanks, Debi. All right, are we ready for the questions?
We're ready now.
Great, thank you. So one question, when utilizing the 5 moves of the tango, what are the benefits or drawbacks of doing so sequentially?
Oh, that's a great question. First thing I always like to say about the tango is it was created years and years and years after I was already a trainer. And the tango is meant to be a really loose guideline for EFT therapists. It's not meant to follow it rigidly. If you follow it too rigidly, you're missing out on the art of EFT. So I feel very strongly about that. I feel like when we use the tango, I keep wanting to create like a form for this, but I feel like after each move, we should have like, say what you see, because things are happening live in the session as we're, quote, doing our tango moves. And if we're too rigid in following the moves of the tango, then we're going to miss the richness of what's happening live with the couple right in front of us. So, and another thing is the tango isn't necessarily meant to be followed in order, because if you look at the most recent version of the tango, the last move, move 5, says celebrate what just happened. And so I don't know about you guys, but for me as a therapist, when I send over some enactments, there's no celebration because the block shows up. So if you follow it sequentially, it makes no sense. Like, you can't celebrate what just happened if the blocks are showing up. You could say to the person who maybe took a risk and shared vulnerably in their enactment, say, I so appreciate the risk that you took, and it was different from your how you usually are in the cycle. And partner, you heard something different. Tell me what was happening for you. So that completely is not not move 5 in the tango, right? It's not even ask them like kind of process the enactment with the partner, because we see the block right away. So then we're going to lean into that. So the tango is a very loose guideline for you guys for when you're lost. When you don't know what's going on in session, actually, the first thing I would say is look around the room and say what you see. If you're lost in an EFT session, you have no idea what's going on, or your couples are like yap, yap, yap about all the content and all the stories that happen, the first thing that you need to do when you're lost is look at them and then comment on what you see. Even if it's just, wow, you guys are like telling me all this content and all the details of what happened over the week. And I'm kind of noticing that each time one of you mentions a detail, the other person comes back with a different detail. And it's kind of like, you're kind of like in this little dance right now, or something like that, just to look at the process, because we're process consultants. We're not here to listen to all the stories of our couples and have them, tell us everything that happened over the week. That's not what EFT is about.
Thanks. And so I think something that you just said is similar to one of the questions that we got. Someone had asked, what do you do if all 3 of us are stuck? And I assume they mean the couple and the therapist.
Yeah.
It sounds like your answer might be say what you see.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm smiling, because I frequently will say to couples, we are stuck. And this is where we're stuck. And that's where I would say, like, knowing the model, like having you don't have to study it. You don't have to know everything about it, but you have to kind of at least know that there's 3 stages of EFT. So if you're stuck in people really getting a grasp of the cycle, and it seems like you're caught in like a blame or accuse defend pattern, if you're stuck there, then you guys just say it. Say, I feel like we're all stuck in this back and forth blame, or find the bad guy or accuse defend, and I'm concerned because I feel like the more we stay stuck here, the more that I know this isn't a word, but rigidifies the cycle. So we want to try to address that as soon as we can. And don't be afraid to say, I'm stuck with you guys, because this is where I kind of want us to kind of move slightly. And we keep saying right here, don't be afraid to say that. It's okay.
I love that. So you mentioned blocks, right? Like not being able to celebrate necessarily because a block comes up. One of our questions that we got in was, how do you deal with blocks and how do you use and identify them in the cycle?
Mm-hmm. So how do you deal with blocks is, first of all, I would say expect them. Like when you're working with a couple, and especially early on, and it doesn't matter to me what our number session it is, but it feels early, like, and you're in stage 1 and you really haven't sent over that many enactments, or you've sent over 10 and there's been blocks, you need to expect blocks. Because if we're not expecting the block to come, we get off balance as a therapist. And we all of a sudden feel like we did something wrong, or, oh my gosh, I just hurt this person. Here, let me try to get this other person to respond differently. And then you try to drag somebody out of their protective position. And that just doesn't work. Even if you do drag them out of their protective position and they say what you want them to say, it's not genuine. Like so we have to appreciate blocks in ourselves, right? We need to see the block and say, oh, here's the block. I appreciate it coming up, because then I can show the couple the cycle more because it's happening live. When blocks show up in session, we need to look at that as an opportunity to move into the present if we're not already in there, and show them the power of the cycle, right? So it feels like something happened to you. I know something happened to you because you just said X. Right? We don't necessarily say you just blocked it. Like if they are dismissive or they say, I don't trust that. You say, well, tell me what just happened right there when your partner said, da, 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 da. What happened for you? Because I know you said, I don't trust that. So can we try to figure out how that landed first? So that's a block, right? So appreciate them, learn to love your blocks, right? One of my boosters is on learn to love your withdrawers. I do have one on blocks as well, but it should be learn to love blocks also. Maybe I should change the title because they're super duper helpful for us in showing the couple the cycle. And couples really need to experience the cycle. Like it's an experiential thing that has to happen. It can't just be cognitive. So we can't just write out the cycle and show it to them or have them write it out on a piece of paper and not have them feel the power of it. So blocks help them feel the power of it. And blocks can be on both sides. The person who's sending over the enactment, like if they touch some vulnerability with us and we try to stretch that out a little bit, and then we ask, hey, can you please turn and share, da, 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 da. And they turn, instead of sharing, I feel really sad that we're so distant in our relationship. Let's just say that was their enactment. They turn and share and say, every time you blah, 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 I feel sad, right? So as soon as they start with every time you're going to want to pause them and say, hang on a second, what just happened? Because we were talking about your sadness and the distance that you feel and how sad you are. And then you turned and started talking you. And I just want to know what happened when you turned to your partner. What went on inside, right? That's catching the block right there and making it explicit that something happened, and then getting curious about what it was so that we can connect it to what they did.
That's really helpful, and being able to really see the block as an opportunity. You just depicted that so nicely, so thank you. One question that we got 6 different versions of, so it's clearly that people are struggling with, is how to work with conflict in session, reactive anger, how to de-escalate, different variations of the same kind of question, I think.
We'll have to put that on a future Q&A because there's a lot to talk about with that. But in a quicker answer, I would say conflict and reactivity needs to be stopped. If you think about it like a tornado that just came into your office and it's going to pick up speed if you don't get in there. And then it's going to make your job so much harder to get in there. So as soon as the reactivity shows up, your job, and I know it's counterintuitive, guys, so I just want to say I totally get that it's really hard, because when we see conflict and anger, we all want to back up. Like our body wants to pull us away from that, because 9 times out of 10, our experience around anger and reactivity is it's dangerous, right? So the body will actually try to pull you back. And I want you guys to try to push in and say, time out, time out. I need to stop you guys right now. I know this is so hard, right? So we have to match them and like kind of raise our voice, like to meet them where they are in the same kind of level of intensity. And then when we get them to stop, we can drop our voice down. But reactivity is, and anger in session is definitely something where therapist needs to be much more active. Otherwise, your job gets harder and harder. The more they're reactive, the more they learn that it's okay for them to be reactive because they're having experience with you. And if they come in and fight on your couch for like 30 minutes of the session, they now have an experience that says they can continue to do that in session. It's not a head experience, it's a body experience. So that's why the quicker we get in there, the more we hold that boundary of stopping that and even saying, hey, this is the cycle. If you've gone over the cycle with them, we're going to stop right now and figure out what's happening for each of you, the better you'll be, because letting it go, not helpful. But you also have to interrupt with empathy and compassion. So that's there too. You can't be so stern that they feel like they got scolded at by their therapist. So that's a really important thing too.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that that answers most of the conflict questions that we got. One of the ones that we got, I kind of like the way they worded it, and I'm curious to see if you have a different answer based on how it
Sure.
comes. How do you come alongside people in reactive anger?
Yeah, I think one thing we have to always remember inside of ourselves is we have to hold that on the inside they are in attachment distress, because if we're just seeing that outside reactivity, it gets very hard to come alongside them, right? Because they're dangerous and we want to move away from them, or we're feeling frustrated with them for their reactivity, right? So I would say first thing we need to do is always remember the attachment significance of the reactive behavior. Because if you lose sight of that, then you'll get frustrated with your clients and you will come in without empathy and compassion, and you'll come in stern and you'll scold your clients for doing this behavior. So first thing, we always hold the attachment frame close to our heart, even if they're not showing us their pain. That's so important, right? And then you need to like match them first. I'll go back to match, like, I know this is so frustrating. I totally get it. And I know more is happening for you inside when you see your partner doing X, the cue. Tell me right now in that moment when you saw that or heard that from your partner, how that hit you. Can you talk to me about that? Because I saw what happened. I saw you get really charged and revved up. So that tells me something happened to you. So we match as soon as we can. We match. We trust that there's something more going inside because we believe in attachment theory. We hold our thread as much as we can. And then we drop our voice. As we match, we have to then drop, because if we stay in that match state, they're not going to come with us. And I want to say one other thing about that. If you match your client's intensity with your voice and then you drop, they'll come with you in the drop. If they feel like you really got them and they feel like I would just say that you really got them, which means they're not alone in their frustration and anger. They're not alone because you connect with them there, and then you drop a little bit. They will come down with you, and don't expect that they'll stay down the rest of the session, because if you have that expectation that they'll stay down for the rest of the session, you're going to be very let down and think that you're doing a bad job and you don't know how to do EFT. So reactivity will pop back up because the partner is sitting there, and that's the cue of danger, right? They're sitting right next to them. So the protection is gonna come back up. So you just need to match again and drop again.
Coming back to that, expect blocks.
That's right. Exactly.
Okay, so another thing that we got a couple of questions about is how do you go into tango move one, right? What are some, one person gave a nice explanation, which is that a lot of times when they watch trainer videos, it seems to be live sessions of couples who have been in therapy for 6 or more sessions. So they haven't really seen a lot of tango move one, kind of finding that emotion, latching onto the present process, being played out live for them in those first few sessions of stage one.
So tango move one is reflecting present process, right? And what that means, actually how I see that, and it's a more vivid imagery, is to hold up a mirror. Like you're holding up a mirror to your clients so they can, with compassion and empathy, don't forget that. That's always, everything has to be done with compassion and empathy. We want to hold up a mirror to what we're seeing. So to me, like if your couple's on session, we do our assessment sessions, right? And then we come right back in to that next session. We start tracking a cycle, right? That would be the next thing that we would do. We start tracking a cycle. And in that session, if you see any movement, right? Any kind of movement of looking up, looking away, folding arms, like anything, taking a deep breath, like anything like that, is information that there's live emotion in the room. So we have to learn that's move one. Reflect, present process, say what you see that's happening right in front of you with empathy and curiosity. So people don't feel shamed or scolded or that they're doing a bad job in therapy. So if we hold our attachment frame, we can say, hang on. I know something's going on inside, but I notice that you're like rolling your eyes or your voice is getting revved up here. So can you please share with me? especially early on. Can you please share with me what's happening or what you just picked up from your partner? Because it's always it's like the within in between is what's happening internally, and then what's the trigger from your partner. So that's what I would do for move one. It's always right there. It's
Yeah.
always there.
Yeah. This is a question I'm curious to hear what your answer will be, Debbie. How do you create empathy?
Create empathy. Wow. I said that's like an interesting question. First of all, I don't think you can create empathy. I think you feel empathy. And I think the way that you'll be able to feel empathy for your clients is if you hold your attachment frame. When we lose our attachment frame, we get frustrated with our clients. We feel like they're messing up. And what happens when we're not, quote, doing well in EFT, we feel like a bad therapist. So when we feel like a bad therapist or we're never going to get EFT, we get frustrated, right? And the frustration tends to turn to the clients. So I think that empathy is really about seeing and remembering that there's so much pain going on inside. And then we can have empathy. If we lose sight of that, we'll feel frustrated with our clients. And I'll let you guys know, I have a lot of experience at this, and I still sometimes get frustrated with my clients. And when that happens in a session, I will notice that, right? I can't even deal with it live because I'm too busy in the session. Sometimes I could deal with it live within myself. But afterwards, I tell myself that, okay, Deb, you lost the attachment frame on so-and-so client. Like, let's sit here for a moment, see if you can remember their history, look it up if you have to, and figure out what they triggered in you, which is usually, imposter. I can't do this. Maybe I should be a crossing guard instead of an EFT therapist and trainer. Right. So I don't know, maybe you guys think, oh my God, that happens to her. It shouldn't happen to her, but I don't know. I think it's just part of the journey of being an EFT therapist. It's going to happen. So.
Thanks. I think the way that I understood the question, and honestly, that was the whole question, so I have no idea. It's open to interpretation. Was more like, how do you get the clients themselves to feel empathy for it?
Oh,
But I
sorry.
didn't stop. A great answer too. So thank you.
Okay. So how do we create empathy within the couple?
I think so. That's how
Okay.
I end.
Well, hopefully my other answer was helpful for some people. Um, but this is going to sound stupid, but by doing EFT, the only way we can have empathy show up in the couple relationship is literally by doing EFT, because what I mean by that is EFT is about holding up a mirror, saying what you see, looking for live emotion, moving into that, deepening that live emotion, and then stretching it out and sending over an enactment. That's what we do in EFT. So when we find the live emotion and we kind of deepen that and distill it to a clear message about what's happening inside, and we stretch that out. A lot of people rush for enactments as soon as they get vulnerable emotion. They're like, oh, turn and share that. And I'm a big fan of, no, don't turn and share it. Try to stretch it out first. Like, because the longer people can be in their experience of their vulnerable emotion, the longer the other person who's sitting next to them can kind of say, is this possibly true? If it's a split second or they're just talking about it, the other person is like rolling their eyes inside. Even if they're not rolling them outside, they're rolling them inside and saying, this is BS, right? It's the real live emotion that we have to bring to the surface, has to be felt. And we have to take risks to have our clients share that. That's where empathy is created, because now I can see your pain or your fear and I can get a felt sense of it. And that felt sense, because you're the person I love, because you're the person who's so important to me, that can hit me in my heart. And when it hits me in my heart, I can show up differently. So
Thank you, Debbie. And I love that EFT voice. Just bring it right into our bodies right here. And I do want to give a shout out to John Savakul I'm totally butchering your name, I'm sorry, that he is grateful you did not select the career path of a crossing guard.
thanks, John.
Okay, so this is a great back to the basic question. How do you help a couple track their cycle?
So I mean, I think, like I said, they have to feel the cycle experientially, which is very true. And I use my little, what I've created. I don't use the infinity loop with all those words on it because it's confusing. It's too many words, too many things that we're filling in. Because if we're filling in behavior, unmet attachment needs, primary emotion, secondary emotion, perceptions, and then behavior, that's a lot to put in a cycle, right? And clients will get confused and glazed over. So I've created like what I call my EFT bow tie, and I've simplified it. And it's just when you see your partner doing X, how does that hit you on the inside? That's what I'm looking for. And then I'm going to talk about, and how do you show up on the outside? So the simplified version of cycle is, what do you show on the surface or the outside, and what's happening for you on the inside when you see that cue from the person who matters most, right? That's what we're looking for. And so I will draw that out for them. I will show it to them, which doesn't get it quite in their body. But I have to get them to buy in that there's a cycle, which is sometimes like getting that cognitive understanding or the insight that this is happening can be really helpful, because then they're like, oh my God, that is happening. That is it. So then they'll buy into the cycle, which we need them to do. Then we got to work with it live in the room to really get them to embody it and see how powerful it is. That it's actually hurting both of them when they get into the cycle. It's not just one person is hurting and the other person is happy-go-lucky. This is a dynamic and a dance that is really hurting both of them. And then I will also, one other thing is I will ask them, like I do like little bits of homework kind of at the end of my session. Like, so if we tracked a cycle in session 1 and we got to some inside and outside for each person, I might send them and say, hey, if the cycle shows up this week, I want you to, like, after it kind of recedes, if the wave comes and crashes and crashes and crashes and you're in the cycle, you can't do much until it recedes. And then you can spend some time by yourself and see if you can figure out what got touched inside of you and how you showed up because of that. So that's like a very first beginning that I'll have them do, which is really focusing on the self, not pointing the finger at the other person, but just focusing on the self. And then I'll add to that. Now I want you guys to call out the cycle and see if you can stop it together and come together. So bringing it outside of the session is important and helpful as well.
So you heard it here, people. Debi assigns homework. That is
very little. It's more thinking about things or noticing things or yep.
I'm going to go back to a few questions that we got about the tango specifically.
Okay.
One of them was, what should I focus on? And again, we got this one in a few different ways. What should I focus on after I send over the enactment? Other versions of that, like, was which person do I process it with first? Things like that.
So let's start with the, what should I do after an enactment is sent over? I would slow down and back up for a second. And I would say to us therapists, what do we notice when we ask for an enactment? That's the first thing I want people to, like, be plugged into. I know the tango move says send over enactment, and then this is why I'm saying it's like, if you follow it too rigidly, you're missing the art of EFT. So the first thing you have to do is, if you have somebody in vulnerable emotion and you ask them to turn and share blah, blah, blah. So we want to kind of fill in and direct them with what we want them to share. We want to be specific with the message that we want them to send over. The first thing you need to do is notice what happened to them when they turned. What did they share? Did they miss a piece of what they shared? Right? And then we want to comment on that. I noticed that your voice changed, you sat up taller, and you shared it, but it almost felt like you zipped yourself up. I wonder if you noticed that. Did you notice that you kind of felt like you sat up taller and you zipped yourself up? That's the first thing that we need to do with enactments. And if we don't do it, again, we're missing such an integral part of EFT. So that's the first thing I would say. If they're vulnerable and we stretch that out and we send over the enactment and we're specific and they actually turn and share and the vulnerability stays consistent when they look at their partner, and they take a risk and they share, I usually tend to say to the person, thank you so much for taking a risk and sharing that. And then I'll go to the partner and I will say, when your partner just took a risk, I'll say it again, just took a risk and opened up and shared blah, 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 blah with you, How was that for you? What happened to you? What did you notice inside of you? Um, and I'm repeating the enactment again specifically to that person so that they hear it again and again before they respond. I want them to hear it again and again because it's like if we expect people of first enactments of being vulnerable that they're going to be responsive to each other again, we're going to feel like a bad therapist, like we're not doing EFT well. So we do want to try to pass it by again and again and then ask and allow whatever they say to be their answer. If they say, I heard that it's all my fault in the relationship, and you're like, dang, I didn't hear that. You can just feel that on the inside, but then you can lean in with curiosity and say, oh, you did hear that? Help me with that. Like, what was it that happened there? Or if we know that that's how they feel in the cycle, right? If we know that they often feel like they're blamed and it's their fault, we could say to them, ah, so it touched the same place that happens in the cycle right here, right now, when your spouse shared XYZ, you're saying it tapped that real tender place inside, the same place that gets touched in the cycle. So no wonder you're responding like X.
Right.
Right.
Right. Great.
And there's another question that you added with that one, and I felt like there might be a different answer. What was the other question?
You answered it. It sounds like the question was, how do you judge which person to go to first?
Oh, okay, good. I covered them both. Okay.
Yeah, great. Okay, I'm gonna debating internal debate. Okay, we'll move past it. Is there an age that would be too young to properly use EFT? The example they gave is two teenagers in a relationship.
Well, I don't work with teenagers, so I would say that I would not do EFT with teenagers. Although my daughter had her first relationship and I was showing her how cycles and patterns work in relationships, and she was open to hearing that. I feel like, there's research out there, and I'm not very good at quoting research and stuff, but I know there's research out there that the people who are married, the brain responds differently to threat and pain with people who are married in a committed relationship, married, versus people who are just in a relationship and committed to each other and don't have that marriage thing. So I just am sharing that with you guys, and it was found accidentally. I think there's something to it though. Like, I think there's something to that level of commitment when you're married, that it's like a little harder to like end a relationship that when you're, even if you're like in your 20s, not even teens, and you're in your 20s and you're dating somebody, I feel like that level of commitment isn't there. And what I would do is I would send them to my Hold Me Tight workshop instead of working with them, right? Get them, let them have the understanding of relationships, because that's a piece that's missing. Like, that's missing in our world. We don't educate our our kids, and our society doesn't help people know what is important about relationships. So people think they're supposed to be independent and strong, and that never works. So,
I love that. Yeah, I never heard that research before. That's fascinating. When would you advise doing some individual work before couples work? This therapist wrote in that both partners come from major trauma backgrounds.
so I would say my first thing would be, did we meet them already as a couple? That's my first question. And if we did, and we're feeling like this is going to be too hard because they're so reactive because of their trauma, I would encourage maybe a few individual sessions on both sides to balance that out with you, and then with the goal of bringing them back as the couple in the couple relationship. I think this is dangerous if we have a couple who comes in and we refer one person out in the beginning. I think that messes with our alliance. Like, and it gives ammunition for the cycle, for me to blame you. If I say, hey, you need to get some therapy because you have trauma, and then they're triggered in the cycle, then I might say to you, it's your trauma. That's why we get, right? So there has to be some safety in the relationship before I might refer one person out for additional services. And I stand firm and strong again about that. Like, they both have to feel safe with me before I do that, so they don't use this against each other. So I think I would encourage whoever wrote that question to read the trauma survivor book that Sue wrote, EFT with trauma survivors. It is a wonderful book, and it will really, really help you working with couples with trauma. And one of the things that she says, I read the book twice, once when I just kind of got out of grad school, and then once like 7 years later. And it was super helpful. She talks about how first of all, this is something that I always say, it's in relationships where we're hurt, it's in relationships where we're traumatized. So why would we not heal in relationship, right? It only makes sense to heal in relationship. And when people have trauma in individual therapy, they're trying to do individual therapy work, it's helpful, but it's like having a little tiny flashlight on the trauma. And when we have the couple in front of our office, it's in front of us in our office, it's like having a huge floodlight on the trauma, and we can work with it because it's brighter, and we can work with it within the couple.
That's beautiful. Thanks. A couple of people wrote in about attachment injuries. One person asked, how do you address an attachment injury in stage 1?
So we only really address it in stage 1 if it's pushed in our face like every single session, right? Like if it's part of our assessment and we know there's been an attachment injury 5 years ago or whenever, we identify something as an attachment injury, and it's not in our face constantly, we have to like do EFT, I would say first. And if we access some vulnerable emotion and we send over these enactments, and it can't be done, and maybe the trauma is, or the attachment injury, sorry, is blocking that, then we might need to bring that out and make that explicit, and then see if we can do some work around that, which is like a lighter version of injury repair. Like you got to talk about the pain of the injury, and we're working with the partner to be able to hear that pain and not feel blamed for it. And that's why injury repair work usually is after stage 1 when they're de-escalated. And if it's in our face and we can't, ask them, can we come back to that later after we do some work here and create some safety, because I really want to help you guys repair that. I also need to say something else about attachment injuries, which is attachment injuries are a significant moment in time where something changed inside of you because of the injury. So a lot of people talk about attachment hurts and they label them attachment injury here, attachment injury there, attachment injury. These people have like 5 attachment injuries. That's not an attachment injury. The attachment injury is in a moment of time when I needed you most and you weren't there for me. Something changed inside of me, like a switch went off. And I was like, nope, never again am I letting anyone that close to me. So attachment injuries are really significant events that if the person talks about them, this is a good signal, like it shows up in their mind, the picture of it. They go right back to that place and they could see it's like playing a movie in their mind, right? Because it has such a profound impact on them. So we want to make sure we're using that term correctly also.
Yeah, that makes sense. How do we know, while in the process of assembling emotion, whether the emotion is a primary or a secondary emotion?
It's interesting because they use the term assemble emotion, right? Which is about catching the cue, noticing the body response to the cue, right? The oh no, danger, which is primary, right? Oh no, danger. And then our body sends a signal to sends the signal up. And this happens in a millisecond, by the way. Sends a signal up, and it's about protecting ourselves. This is dangerous. You need to protect yourself. You're going to get hurt. And that's where the secondary emotion comes out, is on that surface place. So I don't know if I'm exactly answering that question, but if we're following like affect assembly, it's the danger is the vulnerable emotion that's happening inside. It's the limbic system's response to the danger that actually sends the signal to our brain. And it literally happens in a millisecond, which is why in EFT we talk about moment to moment processing and going really slow. When we're talking about going slow, we're not necessarily talking about slowing down our voice. We're literally talking about freeze. Like right now in this moment, I'm going to hit my little pause button on you guys. We're going to freeze this frame so I can track / assemble emotion. I can track the cue that happened right now, and we can freeze in this moment so we can get down to the oh no danger moment. If we're not freezing and hitting that pause button with our clients, if we don't, it'll be maybe something that they could talk about, but we're not really getting into it. And it doesn't become like primary emotion. I actually feel like in Sue's, I think maybe it's the attachment theory and practice, she moved more away from primary and secondary emotion to talk about vulnerable emotion on the inside. So it's the softer, tender emotion that we don't show our partner because for fear of getting hurt or rejected or abandoned.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. I'm just kind of like knocking them out at this point. You're going through these so well, Debbie. Thank you. How do you know which partner to tango with if they have different emotional expressions about the same content?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter who you start with. I would start where I see live emotion, right? So, and if I would say if they are giving you different content stories, then the first thing I would do is zoom out and say what you're noticing about the process. It goes back to what I said earlier. Like if they're detail, I'm right, no, I'm right, no, I'm right, no, I'm right. That's what you need to hold a mirror up to first. And then you can go wherever you want to go on either side. It doesn't matter. In stage 1 of EFT, we want to work evenly with both partners. We don't want to like, a lot of people kind of have a misconception that we have to bring out the withdrawer. And I'm like, no, because then you're ignoring a pursuer who's getting more charged and more reactive in session, and then they're going to make your job harder. You have to work evenly with both people, build that alliance with both people. Both people need to be heard, held, and seen. You need to access that emotion, validate the heck out of them, and send over enactments on both sides. We can't just stay on one side. So that doesn't matter. I would say the answer to that question is doesn't matter.
Perfect. Yeah. And you alluded to stage 1, right? And so one of the questions that we got was someone asking for help with pursuer softening and withdrawer re-engagement. I don't know if that falls under the rubric of back to the basics. So I'll let you be make the
No,
judgment.
that's fine. That's fine. So the first thing I would ask yourself, they said help with pursuer softening and withdrawer re-engagement. The first thing I want therapists to ask themselves when they're thinking about stage 2 is how many times did your client, both members of your client, really experience the vulnerable emotion that they feel inside when they're in the cycle? How many times have they dipped in there and opened that up and stayed there and shared that with their partner? That's the first question I'm going to ask anybody, because when people say, oh, here I'm in stage 2, oh, I'm doing withdrawal engagement, I'm doing pursuer softening, and I'm like, well, did they access their emotion in stage 1? Because you can't, stage 1 change event is an experiential change event that happens inside of my body. Because when we're in negative cycles, I feel like you don't care about me. I'll just do something really basic. In a negative cycle, I feel like you don't care about me. Throughout stage 1 work, when I see and feel your accessed emotion, because you're in the experience of it and you're feeling it right now, and I feel that over and over in my body, and you're my attachment person, and I love you and I care for you, that starts to create a shift inside of me that moves from you don't care to, I've seen this again. This is coming up again. Maybe you do kind of care about me. Like that's the shift that happens, but it's not an intellectual. You even hear clients say, oh, I know my partner cares about me. I know they love me. That's a thought. In the body is where we feel like we're not cared for, where we feel like we're not loved, we're not enough. Like it's in the body, and that we're trying to shift that in stage 1, de-escalation, cycle de-escalation. And when we can do that, it opens the door for stage 2. And that's where we would go first with withdrawal re-engagement. I'm almost afraid to say first because people will think that first is in stage 1 too, but it's not. So that's where we do withdrawal re-engagement first. And I will say also to therapists out there with bonding events, you have to be willing to go there with your clients in stage 2. You have to be willing to feel their fears, their longings, their pain around their view of self, it's not something you can do from a distance place. I mean, maybe some EFT therapists can do it from a distance place. I have not found that to be effective at all. You have to, the more you can feel with your client and be in attunement with them because you're feeling what's going on for them and you're allowing yourself to feel that, the more successful the bonding event will be because you'll be in it with them, right? You back up when you ask them to share and you're kind of moving through bonding events. But as you're deepening that person, you have to be willing to be in it with them. I've plenty of times have had tears in my eyes during bonding events. Both because the pain is so real and I could feel it, and also I almost want to say the joy and the emotional movement that happens when you get a real good bonding event. Like that brings tears to my eyes for the couple, for what they've done. So nothing wrong with having tears in your eyes in sessions.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like being able to feel with the couple is just a great summary of EFT in general.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, I like this question. I would like to know how to help couples process their feelings without making it sound like I am leading them to be sad.
Oh, that's so interesting. Part of me wants to say, why not lead them to sad? Why not have the person sitting there and say, thinking my therapist is leading me to sad? Like what, like, does that feel, are you feeling like a bad therapist? Are you feeling like you're going to hurt your client? And that's just good information to know about yourself, because that's self of therapist stuff that comes up for all of us, right? Just kind of know that about yourself. Um, Here's the thing. Our clients feel these feelings, the ones that we're leading them towards. They feel them deeply in their body. And when they have somebody come close to them and say, I see your sadness, it makes so much sense to me why you feel sad. They're feeling seen and heard by another person, which is valuable. And that is a good thing for our clients. So, I mean, like to think about it a little bit that way might be helpful.
Nice. Yeah. I only want to do a couple of more questions
Okay.
that we can make sure to end on time for everyone. Um, and I think what I'd like to do is to go through some of the questions that we're getting in the chat. A lot of the questions, I apologize to everyone who sent in a question that we're not getting to today. We are already planning our Back to the Basics 2 Q&A, so we can get to a lot of the questions that we didn't get a chance to attend to today. Someone wrote in the chat box, what are some ways to move through the assessment sessions so that you can assess things like substance, racism, abuse, suicide, etc., while also learning about the cycle? Is it okay to set aside cycles to address those issues?
Yes. And assessment is part of EFT. Like the first few sessions are reserved for assessment sessions. So I just came off Core Skills 1 and I was doing a demo role play of session 1. Like just met a couple, sat down with them, asked them like kind of like what brings them here. Well, first I introduced EFT therapists and this is how the model works. And then I went in and I was talking to them on first session with my goal being to screen out for any of those things that was listed right there to kind of get information about them, especially abuse, affairs, and addictions. Like it's finding a way to weave that in conversationally and normalize it so your clients can feel like it's okay for them to share this with you and you're not going to judge them. Now, as I was doing that, I was getting pieces of the cycle because that's like kind of, that's what I know. That's what I see. That's the lens that I experience them through. So I got pieces of the cycle and that wasn't my main focus. My main focus actually before my screening questions is to make sure each person feels heard, held, and seen by me. That's the main thing that matters. And then I try to add those screening questions. And then we have more assessment questions that we can ask some of those questions further details about them if it's something that we're like, oh, this is important, or could be a block to therapy moving forward.
Great. Yeah. And that I think leads really nicely into another question we got in the chat box. This one was actually messaged directly to me. How do you, sorry, I'm having difficulty with assessing attachment history, even with the questionnaires. Can Debbie speak a little bit on that and how to tie in attachment history into the cycle?
Oh, tying in the attachment history into the cycle to me is easy peasy because the pain that they feel in the cycle and the protection that they use is often linked to their attachment history. So Like if I learned as a little kid to go in my room and close the door when my parents were fighting or when my parent was angry with me, if I learned to go in the room and close the door, and now in my relationship, I'm moving away anytime tension comes up, that's a protection that I've learned my whole life because it's not safe. The world isn't safe, and this is how I protected myself. So that's easy, I think, to weave that in. So we're looking for, in attachment history, we're looking for the pain and the protection, so we can connect that to the pain and the protection of today. Um, um, I feel like when you read that question, it was kind of like I'm using the attachment history questions, and there's a part of me that says, you know, we've created that. We meaning wherever you've gotten that, that's been created. Never by Sue, because it's not about the questions, it's about the connection with the therapist while pulling out details that help you understand what they learned about comfort and closeness, what they learned about what emotions were okay to express, what weren't, how they protected themselves, what they did when people weren't there for them. So it's like if you're using a clipboard with your questions, we're not having the connection, and the connection is what helps people open up with us.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Should I try for one more question?
One more, yeah.
Okay. Do you have any feedback on how to re-engage a burnt out pursuer?
Oh my gosh, that's like a big question. I would say it's through our connection again. Like if I'm going to like answer this in like a minute, burnt out pursuers have been, and I have to say this, not a lot of people are burnt out pursuers who show up in your office. If you're calling somebody a burnt out pursuer who still gets frustrated and has live emotion and feelings, but they are saying, I'm done. I don't care. I'm done. But they say it in that voice. They are not a burnt out pursuer because they still have live emotion in this relationship. A burnt out pursuer is somebody who has emotionally detached from the relationship, and they are so like stoic and still faced and like don't care, but it's not a reactive don't care. So we got to keep that in mind. It's not reactive. It's not like, well, I don't care what you do because I'm like totally done with this relationship. That's not a burnt out pursuer. That's still a pursuer. So if there's still live emotion, they're not burnt out. If they're burnt out, you need to connect with them and validate the heck out of them and how they've gotten to where they've gotten to see if you can get access to any emotion. If you can't, and you've tried and tried and tried, I think that maybe that person is done. And maybe the enactment becomes, I will never, ever, ever, ever again let you in my heart again. It's closed off. I had to do it to protect myself. And no matter what you do or how hard you try, I'm never letting you in again. And then we got to send over that enactment if that's where the person is holding.
That is such a heartbreaking way to end off this Q&A.
I know it really is, but that's what we have to do for people. EFT is a beautiful model that creates healing, and sometimes we don't get to create healing. And that's hard because we all want to create healing and save relationships, I think, if we're EFT therapists. And sometimes we can't. Sometimes the person is completely closed off and they're choosing to be alone for the rest of their lives, and choosing to, along with alone comes suffering. So they can make that choice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Well, on that note, thank you so much again, Debbie, for sharing this time and all of your wisdom with us. Thank you, everyone, for coming here today. This was recorded. We will be putting it online as well. We will be having a number 2 to this, a follow-up back to the basics. So we'll be getting to a lot of the questions that didn't get asked today. If you want, Aaron dropped all those links in the chat before, so thank you for that, Aaron. And then I copied and pasted it and did it really messily again. So that's there again. If you want to, if you aren't right now interested in joining EFTCNJ, but you want to get on our mailing list, that is an option as well. So you can go to EFTCNJ.com and just sign up for our mailing list, and you'll be the first to know about events like this moving forward. Hope everyone has a great rest of your day and is going into a great weekend. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Simi. Thanks for organizing this. Thank you guys for all showing up and caring about EFT and caring about your couples. And I will see you guys next round. Bye, everybody.
Bye.